If you are planning to take the new PMP exam, you can expect at least 10 case study questions. The best way to prepare is to practice with many case study questions. This will help you understand which details are important, remove the wrong options, and choose the best answer. So, in this video, we will solve 25 challenging questions based on 5 different case studies. For each question, I will explain why the correct answer is the best choice and why the other options are wrong. This video will help you answer all the case study questions on the actual exam more easily. If you are ready, let's get started. Before we begin, let me briefly introduce myself. I am Sabri, the owner of KSPM Academy and Lando Management Academy. I've been teaching project management since 2008, and my online PMP exam prep course has been a bestseller for many years. Thousands of students have used this course to prepare for and pass the PMP exam. If you also want to pass the exam on your first try, you are welcome to enroll in this course. You can find the course link in the description below. Alright, let's begin. Here is our first scenario. Let's read the case study before looking at the questions. The city of Ravenport approved a 14-month project to renovate its central library before the building's 100th anniversary celebration. The main deliverables include a restored roof, new heating and cooling equipment, updated electrical systems, and redesigned public areas. Because the library must reopen for the celebration, design, procurement, construction, inspection, and final acceptance were planned in sequence. The project manager coordinates the architect, general contractor, suppliers, library leadership, and city representatives. During planning, city officials approved the scope, schedule, and cost baselines. They also established a formal process requiring a change control board to approve any changes to these baselines. The quality plan states that electrical wiring must be inspected before wall panels cover it because the wiring becomes inaccessible after the panels are installed. The risk register also states that if shipping confirmation for the imported heating and cooling equipment is not received 8 weeks before installation, the procurement team will activate a pre-qualified local supplier using contingency reserve. The library director could not attend the design workshops, so her deputy reviewed the drawings using information about normal daily visitor numbers. At the later full-size layout review, the director explained that the planned self-service desks would restrict movement when large school groups visited, and requested that 2 desks be moved 4 meters. The contractor said the move was still possible and might be covered by the project's remaining funds, but it would affect floor connections and possibly the accessible routes used by visitors with disabilities. The contractor has now provided the following status information. The sponsor has asked the project manager to recommend actions that protect the reopening date, while the procurement manager proposes waiting 1 more week for the imported equipment because its supplier expects to send confirmation soon. Here, we are also given a table that provides a status snapshot of several project areas, including desk relocation, heating and cooling equipment, electrical work, other interior work, roof replacement, and the progress measurement rule. So here, the project's primary objective is to renovate the library and reopen it before 100th anniversary celebration. Therefore, the reopening date is extremely important. The work is being managed using a predictive approach. We know this because the activities were planned in sequence. The scope, schedule, and cost baselines were approved, and a formal change control process has been established. The project is currently in construction, and several issues are happening simultaneously. Alright, here is the first question. The architect confirms that moving the desks appears technically possible, but the effects on accessible routes and approved plans are not yet known. What should the project manager do first? Okay, the most important word in this question is first. This tells us that more than one action may eventually be necessary. However, we must identify the correct sequence. We also need to understand the real issue. The question is not simply asking whether the desks can physically be moved. The architect has already confirmed that the relocation appears technically possible. The real problem is that the complete impact is still unknown. In the scenario, it says the scope, schedule, and cost baselines have already been approved. A formal change control process requires the change control board to approve baseline changes. The contractor says the move may be covered by the remaining project funds. However, the contractor also says that it will affect the floor connections. Let's evaluate the options. Option A. Ask the sponsor to approve the preliminary estimate before the contractor's current work continues. There are two problems with this option. First, the estimate is only preliminary. The complete impact on other parts has not yet been determined. The project manager should not ask for approval before providing the decision makers with complete and reliable information. Second, the scenario specifically states that baseline changes must go through the change control board. Sponsor support does not replace the established change control process. Therefore, we can eliminate this option. B. Allow the contractor to relocate the floor connections while the formal request is being prepared. Well, this option is incorrect because it begins implementing the change before the change has been analyzed and approved. The contractor should not begin changing the work while approval is still pending. Option C says to assess the complete impact with the relevant specialists and submit the proposed change for review. See, this is the correct sequence. The project manager first needs to understand the complete impact of the request. That includes the effect on scope, cost, schedule, floor connections, and so on. Once this information is available, the project manager can submit a properly analyzed change request to the authorized change control body. This is most probably the best answer, but let's take a look at option D just in case. Use the remaining project funds to complete the relocation before the wall panels are installed. This option focuses on urgency. It suggests that the work should be completed quickly because the wall panels will soon be installed. However, urgency does not remove the need to analyze the impact and obtain approval. Therefore, the best answer is C. Now, let's move on to the second question. The important equipment supplier offers a small discount if the city waits 4 more days for shipping confirmation. The question is asking what the project manager should do now. In the scenario, we see that the risk register contains a clear condition. If shipping confirmation is not received 8 weeks before installation, the procurement team will activate the pre-qualified local supplier using contingency reserve. The project has now reached that 8-week point and confirmation has not been received. Therefore, the trigger condition has occurred. The planned response is already documented. The project manager does not need to invent a completely new response simply because the original supplier is offering a small discount. The reopening date is also a major project constraint here. Waiting without confirmation increases the uncertainty surrounding that date. Okay, let's read the options. Option A says to accept the offer because 4 days remain within the 8-week period stated in the risk register. Well, the 8-week point is not the beginning of an additional waiting period. It is the deadline for receiving confirmation. The risk register says that if confirmation has not been received by that point, the planned response should be activated. Here, the 4 additional days would occur after the trigger has already been reached. Therefore, the discount does not eliminate the shipping uncertainty. It only offers a small financial benefit in exchange for accepting more schedule risk. Option B. Work with procurement to activate the planned local supplier response and update the project forecast. So this option follows the approved risk management plan. I mean, the risk was identified in advance, a trigger was established, a response was planned, a pre-qualified local supplier was selected, and contingency reserve was identified to support the response. Now that the trigger has occurred, the project manager should work with the authorized procurement team to implement that response. The forecast should also be updated because activating the local supplier may affect expected costs, procurement dates, delivery dates, or other project projections. This action addresses the risk while protecting the reopening date, therefore, it is probably the best answer. But let's take a look at the other options as well. Option C. Ask the sponsor to select between the imported and local suppliers based on their total prices. Here, price is not the only consideration. The main concern is the uncertain delivery date and how it may affect the required reopening date. Also, the risk response already tells the procurement team what to do and identifies a pre qualified local supplier. Therefore, the procurement team should handle this decision because they have the required authority and knowledge. There is no need to ask the sponsor to choose simply because the suppliers offer different prices. D. Resequence the installation work until the important supplier provides a confirmed shipping date. So, this option creates a new response instead of following the one already approved in the risk register. Changing the work sequence may help in some situations. However, nothing in the scenario shows that it will protect the completion date better than using the planned local supplier. It could also affect other work, inspections, contractor resources, and final acceptance. More importantly, the delivery date would still be uncertain. Therefore, this is not the best answer either. As we have already determined, the best answer is option B. Now, here comes the question number 3. It says, which action is most appropriate for the electrical work? Well, what do we know about the electrical work? First, the quality plan clearly states that the electrical wiring must be inspected before the wall panels cover it. This is not an optional preference. The wiring becomes inaccessible after the panels are installed. In the table, it says wiring is complete, but the required inspector will be available in 3 days. Therefore, we can conclude that the inspection has been delayed by 3 days. Let's evaluate the options. Option A says to install the wall panels and remove only the sections that the inspector later asks to examine. This option knowingly covers the wiring before the required inspection. That directly conflicts with the quality plan. Therefore, we can eliminate this option. Option B. Request approval to change the inspection sequence because the panels can be removed if necessary. Since this may cause rework, this is not a good project management decision. Let's read the next option. Stop the interior crews for 3 days and revise the schedule forecast to account for the inspection delay. This option respects the inspection requirement, which is positive. However, it assumes that all interior work must stop. When we check the status information, we can see that the furniture activity can begin and has available float. Therefore, stopping all interior work is not a good response. Lastly, option D says to hold the wall panels until inspection and begin the furniture work that can start within its available float. Well, this option meets the quality requirement because the wiring stays uncovered until the inspection is complete. At the same time, it protects the schedule. The available crews can move to other work without breaking the required sequence. Also, the furniture activity has enough float, so starting it now will not create another schedule problem. Therefore, this is the best answer. Now, let's continue with the next question. What could have reduced the likelihood of discovering the desk layout concern at this stage? So, this question is asking about prevention. So, let's read the options. A. Validate both normal and high demand visitor flows with operational representatives before approving the design. Yes, This option directly addresses the cause of the problem. The team considered normal visitor numbers, but they did not consider large school groups or other busy periods. By reviewing different situations with experienced stakeholders, the team could have checked whether the layout worked both on normal days and during busy periods. This could have helped them identify the movement problem before approving the design. Therefore, this is probably the best answer, but let's review the other options just in case. Option B. Require the library director to attend every design workshop before allowing the architect to continue. This option is too rigid. The library director's input is important, but requiring one person to attend every workshop could unnecessarily delay the project. Stakeholder engagement should be planned according to the knowledge and decisions needed at each stage. If the director cannot attend, another knowledgeable representative may participate. Option C says to reserve additional schedule and budget allowances for layout changes requested during construction. Additional resources could help the project manage the effect of a future change. However, they would not help the team identify the requirement earlier. Therefore, this option does not address the cause. D. Send the completed design to all identified stakeholders and request written confirmation from each one. Although this may sound collaborative, sharing a completed design with everyone is not the same as checking how the space will work in real life. Some stakeholders may not have enough experience to notice visitor flow problems. Others may approve the drawings without thinking about a large school group moving through the area. Also, if the team waits until the design is complete, changes will become harder and more expensive. Therefore, this cannot be the best answer either. And this makes option A the best answer. And now, here is the fifth and final question for this case study. Which statement best interprets the reported roof status? So, let's take a look at what it says about roof status in the question. As you can see, it says materials for 90% of the roof are on site. Only 60% has been installed and passed the required water resistance test. The contractor reported the roof as 90% complete. Let's evaluate the options then. Option A says that the 90% report is reasonable because the required materials are already available at the project site. Well, having materials available is helpful for future work, but it does not mean the related work has been completed. The approved rule requires two things. The roof section must be installed and it must successfully pass the water test. Materials waiting at the project site have met neither of those conditions. Therefore, they cannot receive full progress credit. The status may remain at 90% if the remaining water tests are completed before the next report. Future tests cannot be included in today's performance report. The project manager should report only the work that has already been completed, not work expected to be completed later. So let's eliminate this option. Option C. The roof should be reported as 60% complete because progress requires installation and successful testing. This option applies the approved measurement rule exactly. Only 60% of the roof sections have been installed and passed the required test. Therefore, 60% is the amount of completed work that should appear in the current performance information. This also gives the sponsor and other stakeholders an accurate understanding of the project's present condition. Therefore, this is probably the best answer. But let's read the last option. The difference affects only the forecast because all delivered materials belong to the project. Well, as I said, owning the materials does not mean the roof work is complete. They cannot be counted as completed roof work. Therefore, the best answer is C. Okay, my team and I spent several days preparing all these questions, filming this video, and bringing it to you on YouTube. So if you are finding it helpful, please take a second to give it a like. It may be just one small click for you, but it will really motivate us to create more videos like this. Also, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss my future videos about PMP exam preparation. Let's continue. Alright, our second case study takes us into food product development. Freshfields Foods launched a 5-month project to develop a plant-based snack bar for a national retailer. The approved product target requires the bar to contain no nuts, remain intact for 9 months, meet a maximum retail price, and achieve an agreed consumer taste score. Because customer preferences are uncertain, the team works in 2-week iterations and produces small trial batches that are used for learning rather than sale. The product owner manages the backlog while retailer representatives, production specialists, quality specialists, and consumer groups provide feedback. A product governance panel approved the product target. The product owner may reorder experiments within that target, but changes to the 9-month storage period, price limit, or nut free requirement require panel approval. A trial batch is considered complete after its recipe is documented, fresh samples pass taste and shape checks, a 7-day chamber test confirms that the bar will remain intact during storage, the packing information is verified, and the results are recorded. The recipe uses a fruit syrup that provides sweetness and also helps hold the ingredients together. During the second review, the retailer requested 20% less sugar before an important buyer meeting, and the product owner placed the request in the current iteration because the change involved only one ingredient. Fresh samples received acceptable taste scores, but samples from the chamber test later broke apart. A consumer group then preferred the original sweetness, while the retailer maintained that a lower sugar product would have a stronger position in their stores. The production manager has capacity for only 2 more trial batches before the factory is reserved for another product. A second retailer has offered an early order if Freshfields reduces the required storage period from 9 months to 6 months, although the distribution manager reports that some stores receive products 5 months after production. The progress dashboard is updated when fresh samples pass their checks, while chamber test and packaging results are added to the batch records later. Well, this team is receiving several different requests. The national retailer wants less sugar. The consumer group prefers the original sweetness. A second retailer wants a shorter storage period. At the same time, the team can produce only 2 more trial batches. Therefore, it must use those batches carefully. Each requirement should help the team learn something important. There are also 2 rules we need to remember. First, the product owner can reorder experiments within the approved target. However, the product owner cannot change the target without panel approval. Second, passing the fresh sample checks does not make a batch complete. The chamber test, packaging check, and recorded results are also required. Let's begin with question number 1. What should the project manager do first regarding the request for a 6-month storage period? I think this is an easy question because the scenario actually tells us what the project manager should do in this situation. Here, as you can see, it says changes to the 9-month storage period require panel approval. So, let's evaluate the options with this in mind. Option A. Have the product owner replace the 9-month target and reorder the backlog for the regional launch. The product owner can reorder experiments within the approved target. However, they cannot replace the 9-month requirement independently. Therefore, we can eliminate this option. B. Decline the request because it conflicts with the product target approved at the start of the project. This option protects the approved target, which may look reasonable. However, rejecting the request before checking its effects is too early. The request may create value for Freshfields. Option C says, assess the business and distribution effects, then submit the proposed change to the governance panel. This follows the correct order. First, the team checks the possible business value. It also checks the distribution effect. Here, The distribution information is especially important. Some products may spend 5 months reaching the stores. The team must understand what a 6-month storage period would mean in that situation. After this analysis, the governance panel can review the proposed change. The panel has the authority to decide whether the approved target should change. Therefore, this option considers both the possible value and the project's governance rules. It is clearly a strong answer. Option D. Ask the sponsor to approve the retailer's request and inform the governance panel after the next batch. Well, sponsor support does not replace the required panel approval. The governance panel must approve this type of change before the team uses it. Therefore, the best answer is C. The second question. Considering the conflicting feedback and limited remaining capacity, which backlog decision is most appropriate? We know from the scenario that only 2 more batches can be produced. The original recipe performed well, but the national retailer still wants less sugar. The reduced sugar batch passed the fresh checks but failed the chamber test. Let's read the options. Option A says reproduce the original recipe because it satisfied both the consumer taste and storage conditions. This will return the team to a recipe that worked. However, it will ignore the national retailer's lower sugar request. The team would not learn whether lower sugar and good storage performance can exist together. Option B. Prioritize an experiment that tests lower sugar while also measuring shape and storage performance. This option uses the next batch to answer the most important question. Can the team reduce the sugar without causing the bar to break apart? The experiment does not focus only on sweetness. It also checks shape and storage performance. These conditions are part of the approved product target and the batch completion rules. This is especially important because the team has limited capacity. A focused experiment can test the retailer's request while protecting the product requirements. So, this appears to be our answer, but we still need to check the remaining options. Use the next batch to test the 6-month target because the second retailer has offered an early order. The early order may create value, however, the 6-month target has not been approved. The governance panel must first decide whether the storage requirement can change. D. Ask the national retailer to choose the recipe because it controls access to the larger market. The retailer should provide feedback. However, it should not make the product owner's backlog decision. The product owner is responsible for managing and ordering the backlog. So, option B is the best answer. Next question. Which statement best interprets the information shown on the progress dashboard? The dashboard is updated when the fresh samples pass their checks. However, the scenario gives us additional completion conditions. A batch must also pass the 7-day chamber test. Its packaging information must be checked, and the results must be recorded. Let's take a look at the options by considering this. Option A. The dashboard overstates completion because some batches have not met all agreed completion conditions. Yes, this matches the facts in the scenario and the related PMP principle. Some batches appear on the dashboard after only the fresh checks, even though the chamber test, packaging check, and recording of the results are still incomplete. According to PMP principles, work should not be reported as complete until it meets the full definition of done. And here, the dashboard shows more completed work than the team has actually delivered. So, this option is likely the best answer. B. The dashboard is accurate because fresh tasting provides the earliest usable customer feedback. Well, early feedback is useful. However, early feedback is not the same as completion. The team must follow all the agreed completion conditions. C says, the batches are complete if the remaining checks are recorded as separate backlog items. Moving unfinished checks to separate backlog items does not complete the original batch. The batch must meet all the agreed conditions. Completion should instead be measured by the number of recipe ingredients that have been tested. The number of tested ingredients is not an approved progress rule. It also does not show whether a batch meets the required conditions. As we have seen, the best answer is A. Now, the next question. What should the team have done differently before producing the reduced sugar batch? This is a prevention question. We need to find what the team missed before it produced the batch. Treat the requested sugar reduction as the only acceptance condition and retain the existing production steps. This focuses only on the amount of sugar. It ignores the effect on shape and storage. Therefore, it would not prevent the problem. Option B. Ask the retailer to provide sample products representing the exact sweetness level it expected. A sample could help the team understand the preferred sweetness. However, it would not explain how less syrup affects shape or storage performance. Option C. Keep the request in the backlog until all work on the original recipe had been completed. This would delay useful feedback and reduce the team's ability to respond to change. The team does not need to finish all work on the original recipe before testing a useful request. D. Refine the request with relevant specialists and define how sweetness, shape, and storage would be tested. Well, this is the action the team should have taken. The product owner should have discussed the request with the relevant specialists. The production and quality specialists could have explained the syrup's second function. I mean, reducing the syrup may change more than the sweetness. The team could then define complete test conditions. These conditions should cover sweetness, shape, and storage performance. This would make the experiment more useful and reduce the chance of missing an important effect. Therefore, the best answer is D. So, how is it going? Are you enjoying these case study questions? I hope you are finding them helpful. By the way, we have also created 25 realistic PMP exam style questions for you. You can get free access to them using the link in the description below. Don't forget to solve these questions and test your knowledge. And now, we come to the final question in this case study. After reviewing the failed batch, the team learns that two technicians mixed the ingredients for different lengths of time because the recipe only said mix thoroughly. The quality specialist explains that mixing time can also affect whether the bar remains intact. What should the project manager encourage the team to do first? Now, the team has two possible causes. The lower syrup level may have caused the failure, or the different mixing times may also have caused it. Let's read the options. A. Return to the original syrup level while allowing each technician to use the same method as before. This changes the syrup level but leaves the mixing process unclear. The technicians may still mix the ingredients for different lengths of time. Therefore, the team would still have an uncontrolled factor. B. Select one standard mixing time and continue producing the reduced sugar recipe at full batch size. A standard mixing time may be needed later. However, the team does not yet have enough evidence to select that time. Producing at full batch size would also be too early. Option C. Design a controlled comparison that changes one factor at a time and records the results. This allows the team to separate the effects of the syrup level from the effect of mixing time. The team should keep the other conditions the same while changing one factor. It should then record the result. This helps the team understand which factor caused the bars to break apart. Only after this comparison should the team choose a solution. This is the best use of the remaining trial capacity because the team will base its decision on evidence. This also aligns with PMP principles because the team should identify the root cause using evidence before selecting a corrective action. Option D says, ask the quality specialist to determine the most likely cause from the existing batch records. Well, the specialist can review the records, but those records cannot separate the two effects. The syrup level and mixing time changed together. Therefore, a conclusion based only on those records may be unreliable. And this makes option C our best answer. Okay, that completes case study 2. Let's see what is waiting for us in the next case study. Voltage Electronics launched a 10-month project to release a home energy monitor before the holiday sales season. The product includes a physical device that measures household electricity use and a mobile application that presents the information to homeowners. The hardware follows a planned sequence because factory tools are built to match its exact design and are expensive to change later, while the application team works in 2-week iterations to refine features through feedback. Key stakeholders include the sponsor, retail partners, installation companies, hardware suppliers, application users, and the internal engineering teams. The integrated schedule requires the hardware team to finalize the interface specification, which lists the information the device will send to the application before factory tooling and product certification begin. The risk register states that if the main processor supplier does not confirm the required quantity by week 18, procurement will activate a pre-qualified backup processor and the hardware team will begin a planned 3-week design adjustment. The approved schedule includes 3 weeks of contingency for this purpose. Early application trials involved homeowners recruited at a technology exhibition, and most participants completed the setup quickly. At week 18, the processor supplier has not confirmed the quantity but expects to provide an answer the following week. During a recent application review, a retailer requested alerts showing which household appliances may be using unusual amounts of electricity, but this feature requires information that is not included in the current hardware interface specification. The product owner considers the alert valuable because the retailer plans to promote it. However, a later trial arranged by another retailer found that many general customers had difficulty connecting the device to the application. The application team can improve the setup guidance in one iteration without changing the hardware, while evaluating the new alert may take 2 weeks and could affect factory tooling, certification, and the launch date. Alright, the connection between the hardware and the application is very important in this case. The application team can improve many features through short iterations. However, some application features require the hardware to send new information. A request that looks like an application change may therefore affect the whole product. The requested appliance alert is a good example. It may provide value, but the current interface does not send the required information. Adding that information could affect the hardware design, factory tooling, certification, and launch date. We also have two other concerns. A planned risk trigger has occurred at week 18. In addition, the early application trials may not have included the right mix of users. Keep these connections in mind as we start with the first question. So, here's the question. What should the project manager do regarding the processor supplier? The risk register gives us a clear trigger and a planned response. If the supplier does not confirm the quantity by week 18, procurement must activate the backup processor. We are now at week 18 and the supplier has not confirmed the quantity, therefore the trigger has occurred. Let's read the options. Option A. Wait 1 week because the supplier expects to confirm the required quantity before production begins. Waiting may seem reasonable because the supplier expects an answer soon. However, the team already defined week 18 as the trigger point. Waiting would mean ignoring that trigger. Option B. Ask the sponsor to choose between the main and backup processors based on the launch date. The sponsor does not need to choose between the processors. The backup response was already planned and approved. Therefore, another decision from the sponsor is not needed. Option C says, work with procurement to activate the planned backup response and begin the design adjustment. This option follows the risk register. Procurement should activate the pre-qualified backup processor. The hardware team should then begin the planned 3-week design adjustment. the approved schedule already includes 3 weeks of contingency for this response. So the team can use the response that was prepared for this exact situation. Therefore, this gives us a strong answer, but still, let's check the final option. Move the production milestone by 1 week while procurement continues discussions with both suppliers. This changes the production milestone instead of using the approved risk response. The team should first follow the plan that was created for this trigger. Therefore, the best answer is C. Now, the second question. What should the project manager do first regarding the appliance alert request? Because it asks what to do first here, the order of actions matters. Option A says, ask the product owner to place the alert at the top of the application backlog. The product owner manages the application backlog. However, adding this request to the backlog does not address its hardware effect. The feature may require a change to the interface specification. Therefore, backlog priority alone is not enough. B. Instruct the hardware team to add the required information before factory tooling begins. This begins the change before its full effect is understood. The change could affect tooling, certification, cost, and the holiday launch date. Starting the work now would be too early. Ask the retailer to confirm that it will promote the product if the alert is delivered. This could provide more information about the possible value. However, it still would not show the effect on the hardware and integrated schedule. Option D. Analyze the effect across hardware, application work, certification, and the integrated schedule. And this is the correct first action. The project manager should bring together the relevant systems and check every affected area. The team needs to understand what must change in the hardware. It must also check the application work, certification activities, factory tooling, and schedule. After this analysis, the right people can make an informed decision. They can compare the feature's value with its cost, risk, and schedule effect. So, the request may be valuable, but value alone does not make the change safe. The team must understand its full effect first. So, option D is the best answer. Here comes the next question. What could have reduced the likelihood of discovering the setup difficulty so late? So, we need to ask why the first trials did not reveal the setup problem. A. Include users with different levels of technical experience in the earlier product trials. This directly addresses the cause of the problem. The earlier trials should have included people with different levels of technical experience. Some users may be comfortable with new devices. Others may need clear instructions. Testing with both groups could have revealed the setup difficulty much earlier. This option fits the situation very well. However, we should review the other choices before deciding. Option B. Give the technology exhibition participants more detailed setup instructions before each trial. More instructions might help those participants complete the setup. However, that would make the test easier and less realistic. The team needs to learn whether general customers can follow the normal setup process. Giving extra help could hide the real problem. Option C. Ask retail partners to improve the setup process before inviting customers to test it. Retail partners can provide useful feedback, but their approval cannot replace feedback from real users. Customers are the people who must complete the setup. Delay user testing until fully manufactured devices are available for the retail stores. Delaying the tests would make the problem even more likely to appear late. Early testing gives the team more time to learn and improve. And this makes option A our best answer. Let's continue with question 4. Which action is most appropriate while the appliance alert request is being evaluated? A. Pause the application iterations until the hardware teams decide whether the interface will change. Pausing all application work would delay improvements that do not depend on the interface decision. There is no need to stop everything. Option B. Allow the application team to improve the setup guidance while the cross-component analysis continues. This option allows two useful activities to happen at the same time. The relevant teams can study the wider effect of the appliance alert. Meanwhile, the application team can improve the setup guidance. The guidance change does not require a hardware change. It can help general customers and be completed in one iteration. So, the project continues to deliver value without creating more risk for the hardware. This already looks like the best choice. Option C says keep the original application backlog unchanged until all hardware decisions have been finalized. Well, the entire backlog does not need to remain unchanged. The product owner can still reorder independent application work while the hardware decision is pending. Option D. Move application developers to the hardware analysis so both concerns can be resolved together. Application developers may support the analysis when needed, but moving them away from the setup improvement would reduce progress. It also assumes that they have the right hardware knowledge. The relevant hardware specialists should lead the hardware analysis. Therefore, the best answer is B. And here comes the last question. After the backup processor is activated, engineers report that it may send information to the application more slowly, which could affect real-time alerts. The effect has not yet been confirmed. What should the project manager do next? The words may and has not yet been confirmed tells us that this is still an uncertainty. It is a risk, not a confirmed issue. Option A says record and assess the uncertainty as a new risk arising from the planned response. This is the right next step. The project manager should add the new uncertainty to the risk register and assess it. The team should check its probability and possible effect. It should also decide whether another response is needed. Most importantly, the team should not treat the possible delay as a confirmed problem. More information is needed before changing the schedule or application backlog. Therefore, option A looks correct. But let's make sure the other choices do not offer a better response. Option B. Add 3 weeks to the forecast because slower application alerts are now expected. The slower alerts have not been confirmed. Adding 3 weeks to the forecast will treat the uncertainty as if it had already happened. Remove real-time alerts from the application backlog to protect the launch date. This is also too early. The team does not yet know whether the backup processor will cause an unacceptable delay. Removing the feature now would be based on an unconfirmed effect. Option D. Use the schedule contingency to begin application optimization before confirming the effect. The schedule contingency was approved for the 3-week hardware design adjustment. The team should not use it automatically for another possible problem. In addition, starting optimization before confirming the effect may create unnecessary work. Therefore, the best answer is A. 3 case studies are now complete and we have 2 more to go. Let's continue with case study 4. Miraidix Publishing launched a 12-month project to produce printed and digital science textbooks before the next school year. The project must deliver 50,000 printed books and an accessible digital edition while supporting adoption by 60 school districts. The benefits plan also states that at least 85% of pilot teachers should be able to conduct the included classroom activities using equipment already available in their schools. The approved production sequence requires each chapter to pass a scientific accuracy review, language editing, page layout, final proofreading, and printing. The accuracy review occurs before page layout because scientific corrections may change diagrams, answers, and the space required on each page. An editorial governance board must approve changes that affect the covered syllabus or total book length, while the project manager may authorize corrections within the approved content. The functional manager assigned a senior science reviewer to the project from weeks 18 to 26. At week 19, the functional manager moved the reviewer to another publication for 3 weeks, and the language editor offered to compare the answers with the manuscript so production could continue. To keep the design team working, the production editor sent the first chapters to page layout after language editing, with the scientific review planned for later. When the science reviewer returned, 8 laid out chapters required corrections to diagrams, explanations, and answer key pages. Teachers then tested 4 sample chapters and confirmed that the activities were scientifically accurate, but 30% required laboratory equipment that their schools did not have. The author has also proposed adding 12 pages about an emerging topic, which the publisher believes could provide a marketing advantage. The printing slot begins in 5 weeks, and the sponsor has asked the project manager to protect that date while recommending how to address the teacher feedback and proposed content. At first, this may seem like a schedule problem because the printing slot begins in only 5 weeks. But meeting this date is not the only concern. The approved production sequence requires the scientific review to be completed before page layout. This is important because scientific corrections may change the diagrams, answers, and the amount of space needed on each page. The team did not follow this sequence because they wanted to keep the designers busy. As a result, 8 chapters had to be reworked when the senior reviewer returned. There is also a difference between scientific accuracy and practical use. The activities may be scientifically correct but still be difficult for schools to carry out. The teacher feedback shows that the expected project benefits is at risk. Finally, the proposed 12 additional pages may provide value. However, they will change the book's content and total length. Therefore, the editorial governance board must review and approve this change. Here is the first question. The functional manager offers a junior science analyst as a full-time replacement, but the analyst has not previously reviewed educational materials. What should the project manager do first? Well, having a full-time replacement may sound helpful, but availability alone is not enough. The scientific review requires the right knowledge and experience. Let's read the options keeping this in mind. Option A. Accept the analyst and ask the author to verify any difficult scientific sections. The analyst may not have the required experience. Accepting the analyst immediately could create another quality problem. In addition, the author should not independently check the author's own work. The review should provide an independent check. Option B. Assess the required competencies and schedule impact, then negotiate suitable coverage with the functional manager. This option follows the right order. First, the project manager should determine what skills and experience the review requires. Then, the project manager should assess the junior analyst against those needs. The project manager should also check how the resource change affects the production schedule. With this information, the project manager can negotiate suitable coverage with the functional manager. The solution may involve support, supervision, or another qualified reviewer. This approach deals with both quality and schedule needs. It does not accept or reject the proposed analyst without enough information. Escalate the reassignment to the sponsor because the senior reviewer was included in the resource plan. Escalation may become necessary if the project manager and functional manager cannot find a solution, but it should not be the first action. The project manager should first assess the situation and negotiate with the functional manager. Option D says, move the final proofreading milestone by 3 weeks and continue the other production activities. This changes the schedule before the actual effect is understood. It also does not solve the need for a qualified scientific review. So, the best answer is B. The next question. What should the project manager have done differently to reduce the rework in the laid out chapters? We know exactly why the approved sequence placed the accuracy review before page layout. Scientific corrections can change diagrams, answers, and page space. The team released the chapters to layout without completing that review. Therefore, we should look for an option that deals with this cause. Option A says, begin the page layout but leave additional space for corrections that might be identified later. Leaving extra space might help with some text changes. However, it would not cover every possible correction. A scientific correction could change a diagram, an answer, or an explanation. Extra space alone would not prevent the rework. Option B. Complete the answer key pages separately after all other chapter pages had been designed. The answer key pages were only one part of the rework. The diagrams and explanations also required corrections. Therefore, this option addresses only part of the problem. C. Maintain the required sequence or obtain a qualified replacement before releasing chapters to layout. This option addresses the real cause. The team should have completed the scientific review before page layout. If the senior reviewer was unavailable, the project manager should have obtained qualified coverage. The chapters should not have moved forward without the required review. Following the sequence would have allowed the team to correct the content before creating the final page designs. This would have greatly reduced the later rework. So, option C clearly fits the situation, but we still have one more option. Ask the design team to confirm whether each chapter appeared scientifically consistent before layout. The design team is responsible for the page design. It is not responsible for checking scientific accuracy. A chapter may appear consistent and still contain scientific problems. Therefore, this would not replace a qualified review. The best answer is C. Here comes the third question. How should the project manager address the teacher feedback about laboratory equipment? We know that the teacher feedback tells us that scientific accuracy is not enough. The activities must also be practical for the schools. The benefits plan has a clear target. At least 85% of pilot teachers should be able to conduct the activities with equipment already available. But the current feedback shows that this target may be missed. So let's read the options considering this. Option A says, work with teachers and content specialists to identify alternatives that achieve the same learning results using commonly available equipment. This option protects the learning value while dealing with the equipment problem. Teachers can explain what equipment their schools normally have. Content specialists can then help adjust the activities without losing the intended learning results. The team does not need to remove the activities immediately. First, it should look for practical alternatives that more schools can use. This is a strong response because it focuses on the expected educational benefit, not only the textbook content. Option B. Retain the activities because they are scientifically accurate and equipment availability is controlled by each school. The activities are accurate, which is positive. However, accuracy is only one requirement. Keeping activities that many teachers cannot conduct puts the agreed benefit target at risk. The project should not ignore that evidence. Option C. Ask participating districts to purchase the required equipment before the textbook is released. This transfers the problem to the schools. The benefits plan says teachers should use equipment already available in their schools. Requiring new purchases will go against that expectation. Remove all laboratory activities from the affected chapters and continue with the current production schedule. This response is too extreme. Removing every activity could reduce the textbook's learning value. The team should first search for practical alternatives. Therefore, option A remains the best answer. Here is the next question. The layout leader says the proposed 12 pages may require later chapters to be renumbered, but needs 2 days to determine the full effect. What should the project manager do first? So, the new topic may provide a marketing advantage. At the same time, adding 12 pages may affect the book's length, layout, printing work, and schedule. Let's read the options. A. Approve the edition because the author and publisher agree that it could improve sales. The author and publisher believe the edition may create value. However, their support does not replace the required governance approval. The project manager also does not have the authority to approve this change independently. B. Reject the edition because the printing slot begins in 5 weeks and the content baseline is approved. The printing date is important, but immediate rejection would be too early. The project manager does not yet know the full effect or value. The layout leader needs only 2 days to complete the analysis, so the team should first gather that information. Ask the printer to reserve additional production time before the proposal is reviewed. This assumes that the proposal will be approved. It may also create an unnecessary commitment before the effect is known. And finally, option D. Complete the impact and value analysis, then submit the proposal to the editorial governance board. Yes, this seems like correct. First, the team should complete the analysis. It should check the effect on page numbering, layout, printing, schedule, and expected marketing value. The project manager should then submit the information to the editorial governance board. The board can compare the possible value with the effect on the project. This protects the approved decision process. It also avoids accepting or rejecting a potentially valuable change too quickly. Therefore, the best answer is D. Okay, the last question. The sponsor proposes measuring project success only by whether the files are accepted and 50,000 books are delivered on time. Which statement best evaluates this proposal? See, accepted files and 50,000 delivered books are important. However, the benefits plan also includes adoption by 60 school districts. In addition, it includes the 85% teacher usability target. Option A. Delivering the accepted files and books confirms success because the approved outputs have been completed. This measures whether the team produced the planned outputs. But completing outputs does not always mean that the expected benefits will be achieved. The books may be delivered on time while teachers still cannot use many of the activities. B. Teacher usability should be measured after project closure because it does not affect production decisions. The team already has teacher feedback. That feedback can help improve the activities before printing. Waiting until closure would remove the team's chance to make useful changes during the project. The project may deliver its outputs while current evidence shows that the expected educational benefits remain at risk. This is the best evaluation. The team may deliver the accepted files and 50,000 books on time, but the teacher feedback shows a possible problem with the expected educational benefit. Some activities require equipment that schools do not have. Therefore, the project manager must consider both outputs and benefits. The feedback should affect current content decisions while there is still time to act. Although this is probably the best answer, let's take a look at the last option. The sponsor may replace the benefits measures because protecting the printing date is the current priority. Well, the printing date is important, but it is not the project's only success measure. The sponsor should not simply remove approved benefits measures to make the project appear successful. And this makes option C our best answer. And here it is, our fifth and final case study. Connecta Telecom launched a 6-month project to create a platform that informs customers about service outages before the annual storm season. The first release must allow customers to confirm whether an outage is known, view the estimated restoration time, and register for update messages. The team works in 2-week iterations, and the product owner orders the backlog using expected reductions in customer calls and improvements in customer trust. Network operators, field technicians, call center employees, customers, retail partners, and external message providers contribute to the project. The platform uses an external provider to send large numbers of text messages during an outage. The risk register states that if the provider cannot send at least 400,000 messages per hour 6 weeks before release, procurement will activate a pre approved secondary provider. The remaining release capacity is expected to cover customer registration, integration with the secondary provider if required, and one other large feature. Early reviews included call center managers and customers recruited from the company's digital rewards program, most of whom regularly use the company's mobile application. The managers requested a message whenever field technicians changed the estimated restoration time, and the product owner gave the feature a high priority because managers expected it to reduce repeat calls. During a storm simulation, technicians changed one restoration estimate 5 times in 90 minutes, and the platform sent a separate message after each change. In a later trial with general customers, many participants disabled further messages, and the call center received questions about why the estimated time kept changing. At the 6 week trigger date, the main provider sends only 360,000 messages per hour during the required load test, which is a simulation of peak outage demand. The provider expects a technical adjustment to increase capacity within 10 days, while the secondary provider will require one iteration of integration work. The sponsor has also requested an interactive outage map for an industry event, and the team can complete only one large feature after registration and the required provider work. Well, this case is really about finding the right amount of communication. Customers want useful outage information. However, too many messages can cause confusion. They can even reduce customer trust instead of improving it. The call center managers believed that every change should create a message. This sounded useful because it might reduce repeat calls. However, the later trial showed a different result. Many general customers disabled further messages. Some also called to ask why the estimated time kept changing. Therefore, the team must reconsider both message timing and customer control. The team also has very limited release capacity. Customer registration and any required provider work must be completed. After that, the team can deliver only one other large feature. Finally, the message provider risk has reached its trigger date. The actual test result is below the required rate. Okay, what should the project manager do regarding the message provider? The provider needed to send at least 400,000 messages per hour at the 6 week trigger date. It managed only 360,000 messages per hour. So, the condition in the risk register has been met. We know that the approved response is to activate the pre approved secondary provider. I think this is gonna be an easy question. Let's see. Option A says wait 10 days for the technical adjustment because the main provider has already completed most of the integration. The expected adjustment may improve the main provider's performance. However, the required result was not achieved on the defined trigger date. Waiting would ignore the agreed trigger and delay the planned response. Option B. Ask the sponsor to select a provider after comparing the delay and integration effort. Another provider selection is not needed. The risk response was already approved and it names the secondary provider. There is no need to send this decision to the sponsor. C. Repeat the load test after the adjustment and continue monitoring the risk until then. Well, this is no longer only an uncertainty that the team should continue watching. The trigger condition has already occurred. The team may test performance again later if needed. However, repeating the test should not replace the planned response. Option D says work with procurement to activate the planned secondary provider response and update the release plan. And this follows the approved risk response. Procurement should activate the pre-approved secondary provider. The project manager should also update the release plan. The team now needs one iteration for the secondary provider integration. This update will show how much release capacity remains. It will also support later backlog decisions about the other large features. Therefore, the best answer is D. Now, the next question. What could have helped the team discover the customer reaction to repeated messages earlier? There were two weaknesses in the early reviews. First, most participating customers regularly use the company's mobile application. They may not represent general customers. And second, the early reviews did not show how customers would react to several estimate changes during one outage. Let's read the options. Include general customers and field technicians in trials that simulate several estimate changes during one outage. Yes, this option deals with both weaknesses. General customers would provide a wider range of reactions. Field technicians could make realistic changes to the restoration estimates during the trial. The team could then observe what happens when customers receive several messages within a short period. This could reveal message overload and confusion much earlier. Invite more call center managers to review the wording of each update message. Call center managers provide useful input, but adding more managers would not make the customer group more representative. The main problem was not only the wording, it was also the number and timing of the messages. C. Give rewards program customers detailed instructions about how restoration estimates are produced. This might help those customers understand why the estimates change, but it would also affect their natural reaction during the trial. The team needs to learn how general customers respond without receiving extra explanations first. Option D. Wait until a full storm simulation because individual reviews cannot represent actual customer behavior. Here, waiting would delay useful feedback. The team could test a realistic sequence of changes earlier without waiting for the full simulation. So, option A is the best answer. Question 3. How should the project manager help the team address the notification problem? We should not treat this as a problem that belongs to only one stakeholder group. Customers need timely and understandable information. Field technicians need to update changing restoration estimates. The call center wants fewer repeated calls. Therefore, the solution should balance all these needs. Option A says, keep sending every estimate change and prepare clearer instructions explaining why the times may change. Here, clearer instructions could reduce some confusion. However, this option continues sending a message after every change. The trial already showed that repeated messages caused customers to disable further updates. More explanation alone may not solve that problem. B. Ask field technicians to update restoration estimates only when they are confident that no further change will occur. Restoration estimates may change as field teams learn more about an outage. Technicians should not hold back useful operational information until they are completely certain. This could make the information less useful to customers and the call center. Option C. Facilitate discussion among customers, field teams, and call center staff to refine when updates are sent and how users control them. This brings the affected groups together. Each group can explain its needs and concerns. Customers can explain when messages become confusing or excessive. Field teams can explain why restoration estimates change. Call center staff can describe the questions they receive. The team can use this information to refine the notification rules. It can also define suitable customer controls and create clearer backlog items. This is better than allowing one stakeholder group to design the solution alone. This is most probably the best answer, but let's continue. Option D says, allow call center managers to define a single update frequency because they receive the resulting customer calls. Call center managers should provide input, but they do not represent every affected stakeholder. A single frequency chosen by the managers may not meet customer or field team needs. Therefore, the best answer is C. Now, question number 4. What should the project manager do first regarding the sponsor's outage map request? The sponsor's request may provide value at the industry event. However, sponsor interest does not automatically make a feature the highest priority. A. Schedule the map after the current iteration because sponsor requests take priority over other backlog items. As I said, the sponsor is an important stakeholder. However, the sponsor does not automatically control backlog order. The product owner must consider the release goal, expected value, risks, and remaining capacity. B. Have the product owner compare the map with competing work using the release goal, current risks, and remaining capacity. So, this option respects the product owner's role. It also considers the complete situation. The product owner should compare the map with the other possible work. This comparison should include the release goal and expected customer value. The product owner must also consider the activated provider response. That response requires one iteration of integration work. Most importantly, the team has room for only one other large feature. Therefore, the decision must use the remaining capacity carefully. This gives us the right first action. Let's continue. Option C. Ask the team to estimate the overtime required to deliver the map without changing the release plan. Well, considering overtime at this stage is premature. The team has not yet decided whether the map should receive priority. The product owner should first compare its value and delivery effect with the competing work. This says, add the map to the current iteration so that an early version can be demonstrated at the industry event. This makes an immediate commitment before the priority decision. It may also interrupt the current iteration and place the release goal at risk. As we have already seen, the best answer is B. And now we have come to the final question of the final case study. The secondary provider offers faster integration if Connecta uses its standard message format, but that format does not display estimated restoration times. What should the project manager do first? Here, the team faces a trade-off. The standard format may reduce integration time, however, viewing the estimated restoration time is one of the required first release features. Let's see. Option A. Complete the provider integration and ask the development team to customize the format afterward. This accepts the format before confirming whether later customization is possible. The contract or the provider system may not allow the required change. Therefore, the team should not make this assumption after committing to the integration. Option B. Accept the standard format because message availability is more important than message content during outages. Message availability is important, but a message that does not include the required information may not provide the expected customer value. This option prioritizes speed without considering its effect on the first release requirements. C. Reject the offer because restoration estimates are included in the approved first release features. This option protects an approved feature, which is positive. However, immediate reaction is too early. The provider and procurement may be able to find another solution. The project manager should explore those alternatives first. Option D says, assess the effect on customer needs and work with procurement and the provider to evaluate alternatives. And this follows the right sequence. First, the project manager should assess how the missing restoration time would affect customer needs and the release goal. The restoration time is not just an optional detail. It is one of the main pieces of information promised in the first release. The project manager should then work with procurement and the provider. They should check whether another format or integration option can protect both speed and customer needs. After this work, the team can make an informed decision. It does not need to accept or reject the offer immediately. Therefore, this is definitely the best answer. Okay, I would like to remind you that we have created 25 realistic PMP exam style questions for you. You can get free access to them using the link in the description below. Be sure to solve them to test your knowledge and prepare yourself for the real PMP exam. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next video.